What's going on, guys? Vulkan here. So we have a lot of really big stuff that dropped today for the First Descendant. We have our pre-download information, release date and time. We have some extra info as well as a little bit of gameplay for the 3 unreleased Descendants. And then we have a Q&A where they went and kind of did a deep dive into some of those long-standing questions that we've had with the game. I'm not anticipating this one to take super long, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it for you guys. So one, the pre-download info, you're going to be able to start pre-downloading the game on June 30th at midnight Pacific Daylight Time. I've linked a time converter in the description. That way you can go click on it and see when it's going to launch or pre-download will become available for you. And speaking of launch, remember release date is July 2nd at midnight Pacific Daylight Time as well. So use that time converter, figure out what is going to launch in your region, and you should be good to go. Next, let's talk about the 3 unreleased Descendants, starting with Esimo. Esimo is a walking explosion. His role is burst DPS. Now, everything that he does is surrounded by bombs and traps. So he can attach sticky bombs to enemies or the terrain and then detonate them at will. So the First Descendant website has all of their character cards updated. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a little bit of what we have out there. So Esimo's passive skill is you're going to drop a bomb on the ground when the shield is completely depleted. So shield goes down, you kind of have the martyrdom type thing, and you drop a grenade on the ground. His first skill is called Time Bomb. It's a tech skill. It's going to launch a sticky bomb in front of you, and it's going to attach to an enemy or a terrain. Then you have Blast as another skill. This is going to instantly detonate any attached bombs. And then bomb damage is going to increase with the number of attached bombs. More bombs, more damage, everyone wins. Then we have our Guided Landmine skill. This is going to place a guided landmine at the current location. Once placed, the landmine will fly to an enemy within its detection range and attach to it. It doesn't explode, but it attaches to it. Then you'll want to use, obviously, that Blast skill in order to kind of detonate it. And lastly, our ultimate is called Arc Explosion. You're going to start moving forward fast, and then on collision with an enemy while charging, you're going to inflict knockback. When the movement ends, you're going to deal damage to nearby enemies and remove buffs from them. After the skill ends, Esimo enters a madness state. We don't know too much about madness state, but that is something that is called out here. So that's everything for Esimo. This one looks incredibly interesting. Let's go ahead and flip over to Enzo. Enzo is a support character, and the way the devs described him was that he is a walking armory supply. He's going to use supply drones, command the battlefield by supplying ammo to allies, while also launching long-range attacks with drones at the same time. Again, just like we did with Esimo, let's go through his skills. So his passive skill, he's going to grant fire support to allies within an area around Enzo, increasing their maximum ammo capacity. The efficiency of this effect increases marginally with the number of Enzos in the squad. That's interesting. More Enzos equals more max ammo capacity. I love that. Efficiency increases when Enzo disarms the security of the encrypted vault, and rewards increase when this happens. We don't have any extra information on the encrypted vault, so that'll have to be something we look into at a later point in time. So his first skill is called Start Supply. Here, you're going to summon a bullet supplying device at the designated location. It's going to supply bullets to allies that approach the device. The bullet supplying device can be used one time by each ally and then disappears when everyone has used it or if its duration ends. This is going to be fantastic for burst damage phases when you want to stay in one spot, drop that ammo supply, and just start blowing up whatever you're fighting against. Next, we have Explosive Drone. We're going to launch an explosive drone forward. The explosive drone is going to explode on contact with an enemy or a terrain object, dealing damage. We have Enhanced Combat Suit, which is going to summon a shield recovery communication. When the shield recovery comms is first summoned, you're going to recover Enzo's energy shield by a certain amount, and then continue to recover the energy shield through the effect until the duration is over. So just an energy shield recovery skill there. Then we have perfect support. You're going to summon a small supply ship to himself and allies. The supply ship will periodically provide supply bullets and grants perfect support to allies. The small supply ship attacks enemies in front while it's active, and when the skill ends, it fires a missile that'll cause a big explosion at its destination. So Enzo is going to be another support role that's going to be great for kind of refilling all of our ammunition while also dealing some off DPS. Let's go over to Yujin. So Yujin is our healer. He is a support character, and he has drones. His passive skill is going to significantly reduce the time needed to rescue allies. Targets rescued by Yujin increase their maximum HP for a certain period of time. Always great. Then we have Solidarity Healing. This skill is going to summon a recovery drone that attaches to allies to heal them, which is going to recover the target's health and increase their attack through an accelerant effect upon dismissal. Then we have Restructure Serum. This is going to fire a Restructure Serum forward, decreasing the defense and inflicting allergy. When attacking enemies with an allergy, it's going to heal nearby allies and grant additional healing to allies who kill the enemy. I love that. Anything that's you deal damage to an enemy and it heals you, I love that kind of like gimmick when it comes to healers. Then we have Stimulant Spray. Grants stimulation to allies. While this is active, incoming damage is reduced and recovery is received when stimulation ends, which is obviously health. And lastly, we have Hyperreactive Healing Ground. You're going to heal yourself and allies, granting purification and immunity, which is going to remove and prevent debuffs. So great. You're going to have additional recovery based on the number of allies and enemies within range, and Yujin is granted the hyperactivity effect, which is going to increase his attack and skill power. So those are the 3 new descendants and everything that comes with them. I'm really excited for what they bring to the table, and I'm very curious which one of these do you guys want to go after first. So with that out of the way, let's continue talking about everything else that was revealed. Okay, so let's shift gears into the interview Q&A because this is where a lot of information is actually being held. So 1, they talked about the long-term service model. So they said on August 1st, they will release an update with new content to the game. The first 8 weeks of the game's launch will be in the preseason. And then on the 9th week, which is September 3rd, Season 1 will start and they'll last for about 3 months. Now, each season will bring new descendants, ultimate versions of existing descendants, descendant stories, which are like specific kind of side stories for each character, unfolding their background, giving them more lore, that type of stuff. We'll have new invasions, dungeons, weapons, modules, and bosses. So a lot of new stuff per season. Hopefully they can keep up with this cadence. I know it's intensive for the team. And remember, when things like this launch, they're most likely already done with Season 1 and probably close to done with Season 2. So any changes that are going to happen will probably be by the 3rd season. That's typically how these things work. So if you see something at launch, you're like, ooh, really don't like that, you might have to wait until the 3rd season for them to change it if it's something big. Okay, so they talked about anti-cheat. They're going to be using a Nexon proprietary software plus easy anti-cheat to help counter any sort of botters, things like that. The next question is, how much daily content is there? So they said that the Battle Pass is going to include daily, weekly, and seasonal challenges, and they're going to be using the preseason time to kind of gauge how much is appropriate. They did some testing internally, and they didn't like how it felt to have, quote, homework on top of the grind for both descendants and weapons and modules. So they reduced the amount of time needed to complete those challenges so players can spend more time farming what they want. The next question, a very simple one. Will there be clans? Yes, they do plan to add clans in the future. Next, how do you incentivize players to avoid funneling all of their time into a single most efficient activity? So for dungeons, they say that the drop rate and drop count will scale with your score. So being efficient, having a good build, and getting the highest score possible is going to be the way to go for those players. For the kind of round or wave-based content, proficient players will be able to clear rounds faster, which may be a better farm for some. And then one of the big questions that we have is, what are the drop rates for ultimate weapons and modules, and how long do you expect it to take to farm the new descendants that come with each season? So they mentioned on the hard dungeons, those are going to display the drop chance on the intro screen. They did not go into specifics, but they did say you can add modifiers to increase the difficulty, but also increase the drop chance for whatever you're after. So we've seen this before with my end game video. We kind of talked about the way you can add modifiers to increase your score, and by increasing your score, you're going to increase the drop chance as well as the amount of things that are dropped. So this is the best way to probably go about farming those. Now, they did also mention that with a maxed out character, it should take about 10 to 15 hours to farm a new descendant. Now, in regards to modules, it shouldn't take more than a day with target farming to get what you need. So in terms of farming times and the amount of like investment you need to put into kind of getting all of the new stuff, it doesn't sound wild, which is great because that was my big concern. With a business model like this, you typically want to make things a little bit more difficult for the player that's trying to play for free. That way you can incentivize and kind of push them towards the pay for convenience side of things. So with them saying 10 to 15 hours, that's not exactly terrible. I know I'm a dad, so I don't have, all the time in the world, but I think that's reasonable. So we'll see how that actually ends up playing out. It might be 10 to 15 internally for the folks that know what they're doing, but for us who are kind of learning the game and kind of learn the ropes, it might take a little bit longer, maybe even double that time. We'll just have to wait and see. Another question that I thought was interesting is, why should we play an ultimate over a regular character? And the answer I got was a little surprising. They don't want to force players into ultimate versions of characters purely due to performance and stats. We want them to play for looks and aesthetic, which is why we made the performance increases minimal over the regular version of Descendants. That being said, the ultimate versions do have 2 exclusive modules for them that only work for the ultimate variant. So there is a little bit of drive to like kind of push players that direction, but they said it shouldn't be required by any means. Then the last 2, is there any paid DLC now or in the future? They said no, we are a free-to-play game and will not lock any content behind a paywall. And will there be founders packs? Their answer was very to the point with no. So guys, that is everything that we have that dropped today. A lot of new stuff in there. I'm curious what you think of the very quick teaser about the 3 unreleased descendants, and what question didn't get asked that you would like answered. Let me know in the comment section below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.